fascinating discussion. For the first time in decades, Canada has released its own report on UFO research and protocol, laying out how this country should put our best foot forward. What does that mean?
I know, it's fascinating. And here to dive into this Sky Canada report and what it means for Canadians is journalist Chrissy Newton. Welcome back to The Social, Chrissy.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Everybody's on the edge of their seats, so I can't wait to hear about this. So, Chrissy, this is Canada's first UFO report, as Melissa just mentioned, in decades. So the big question is, why now?
Yeah, why now? It's a great question. So let's back up a little bit historically. So in the 1950s, we had two massive UFO projects. We had Project Magnet was our first one, and then Project Second Story. Project Magnet focused on science, and then Project Second Story looked at UFOs from a national defense perspective. So now, you know, in 1995, the Canadian government got out of the UFO business. So now we backtrack and we go into 2022, where Canada goes, hey, you know, there's something going on here. The American government's saying there's something going on here. There's a New York Times article that comes out with Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, two amazing journalists that break this massive bombshell about a UAP office in the Pentagon. And that's where Canada kind of wakes up and goes, hey, maybe there's something going on in our skies too.
Ooh. Okay, so in media and in this report, we are seeing the use of what you just said, UAP instead of UFO.
Yes.
What is UAP? Please clarify.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we have UAP up here.
We're going to put it up,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, UFO stands for Unidentified Flying Object.
Yeah.
And UAP is Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, and now has changed again to Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. Now, a quick reason why is the fact that UFO has like so much stigma to it. It's so stigmatized as a word. In the 1980s, it was laughed at, it was ridiculed. And now to make it serious and actually have a real conversation about it, they changed it to UAP. And so why anomalous phenomenon is the fact that it's not just in our skies, it's in our water, it's all over the place, and it's multiple phenomena.
We're just gonna move your hair.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So to be clear, is this report aimed at proving or disproving the existence of extraterrestrial life, or not? Like, it has nothing to do with that.
It has nothing to do with extraterrestrial life. This is about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. So it could mean many things. There's 1%.
Couldn't that be an extraterrestrial?
Well, it could, but it also could be interdimensional. Like, there's so many different theories, right? Like, what is that?
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's so many. There's ultra-terrestrial. Like, we have all of these theories. But the idea is looking at this from a science perspective, so we know what's flying in our skies.
And a national defense perspective
100%.
as well.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, so I'm curious, so up until now, what has been the protocol if a Canadian sees something that they can't identify in the sky?
There is no protocol. Yeah, which is kind of wild. So that's why we have Sky Canada Project. There's hopefully going to be a protocol. Recommendations were put forward that we'd have a centralized area where you could have one agency or one area talk about and take all of these reports and communicate them back to civilians and to pilots and to the Canadian government.
And this is for private citizens, right?
This is, and pilots as well, and for government officials. The biggest thing is that pilots are always scared to talk about UFOs because their wings might get taken away. And that's, it's right. I know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then you're grounded. You can't fly, you can't do anything because they're scared that they're like, well, you're seeing stuff up when you're a pilot, which does make sense, right? Let's be honest, you're a little bit worried, but at the same time, you have to take things seriously. And now we are. We're not just laughing at it. And pilots are coming forward. Multiple pilots are coming forward, hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on,
Wow.
coming forward and saying, hey, I'm seeing something and I don't know what it is, and I want to protect myself and also my passengers if it's a commercial airline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, am I driving everywhere this summer? Anyways, okay, so let's talk about this report. What does it say? What does it recommend about how reporting UFOs or UAPs should happen going forward?
Yeah, so there's a couple recommendations. First is a data area, having an app or some form of place that collects all of this information that's open to pilots and civilians and everyone, so that it's one central system. And the Canadian Space Agency should hopefully be the place that will, take all of that and then be able to analyze it and look at it and report it back to civilians. That's one of the recommendations that the report does have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the report is out and the recommendations have been made, then what happens after that?
Yeah, and so, well, first of all, let's back up too. I love a good history beat. Before this, which I think is wild, is that Chris Rakowski is a UFO researcher, and before 1995, or sorry, between 1995 and 2022, he was collecting all of the UFO national records and data collections for the RCMP, the National Defense and Transport Canada. So he was one guy by himself in Manitoba that was then writing books and releasing reports.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And so now, after the point, 2022, Chris Rakowski then wasn't able to do it because we had the Canadian government got involved in Sky Canada project, and he's working with them right now. But it is exciting. So it's like such a Canadian thing to do, right? You give the Canadian, the one person, all the national files.
There's only one person.
Yeah.
So has the Canadian government taken any official stance on this issue at this point then?
No, nothing yet. Right now, it's just a recommendation, right? So we have a lot going on politically, right?
Yes,
So
what's going on?
I think UFOs can take a back burner a little bit, right? Right. We need to get through what's happening with us politically, nationally in this country, and also throughout North America. So yeah, UFOs would take a back burner, but hopefully we'll see what happens after this election, and then the federal government will hopefully step in and put forward all of these tactics and make them actionable, right? It doesn't cost a lot, and we can do it.
Okay, let's talk about cost for a second, because the report also included a poll of Canadians and found that many Canadians actually want more information about UFOs. I do. I do. But that also requires money. There's a cost to do that. So do you think that Canadians have the appetite to use tax money for this purpose right now?
I know. So Mona Niemer, the chief science advisor, when they did a poll for this study, saw that 46% of Canadians were interested. That's almost half the nation was like, let's do this. So when you really think about doing research, it's people, it's time, and it's data analytics, and it's AI right now. So it really doesn't cost a lot, but what it will do will have a massive impact. We'll know what's flying in our skies, national security reasons we need to know. So when we have all this data, we can look at this 1% of UFOs where we're like, what is that? We just can't explain it. But on the other percentages, we can look at and go, well, maybe this is a foreign adversary and they're flying in our airspace in impunity. We need to look at, well, maybe these are weather balloons. You know, we did have the Yukon shoot down. That was pretty scary at the same time when the balloon gate was going on. So we need to look at this from a national defense perspective, but also look at it from, you know, a research perspective and a science perspective.
Chrissy, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. Fascinating stuff. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.